All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Upper Hand Fantasy Podcast. This is Faraz Sadiq. I'm here with Zach Rizzuto. Zach, you know what I said yesterday? I said we ain't worried about nothing. Right? I
Right.
did say we ain't worried about nothing when it comes to
And
Allen Robinson.
are we
And
saying you're worried?
seems like we might have to be a little worried, just a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
I'm
We're
more
gonna
worried
get
about
right.
a different Rams player, but we'll get to that in just
Yeah.
a minute.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We'll get to that in just a minute. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. We're here on Friday, end of the week. Listen, I'm just happy there was some football yesterday we got to watch. It was supposed to be a pretty good game, but it didn't really turn out that way. It turned out to be a blowout for the most part. Matthew Stafford looked terrible. The Rams offense was looking like they were hungover from the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But like here's the thing, man. Bills offense, Bills defense, you know, both looking pretty good right now.
Yeah.
So,
I think
the
we kind
Bills
of knew
coming
that
out
going into it too.
for sure, but like, without Tre'Davious White, you know what I'm saying? Like this secondary was able to do their thing, those safeties, and you know, they were able to like really, really give Matthew Stafford some trouble. You
Yeah.
know,
And it wasn't just the secondary, it was the pressure all night. What did they test? What
oh
did they sack him
yeah,
7 times? Like
oh
that
yeah,
Rams offensive line looked a lot worse than I thought it was going to be.
yeah. They really did, and that offensive line didn't look good. Listen, it's funny, man. The Bills can potentially win the Super Bowl. Like, I'm not trying to overreact here, obviously, but the Bills were the favorite going to the Super Bowl before this game.
Right.
But it's funny that Von Miller, he got those 2 sacks, and he's trophy chasing right now. He got the one with Peyton Manning, right? He got one, last year with the Rams, and now he potentially can get one with the Bills. But
Maybe
I don't
Von
want to
Miller,
jump the gun here,
yeah,
obviously.
maybe Von Miller saw this coming, that the Bills would be much better than the Rams.
I think that's what happened, man. I think that's what
Might
happened.
be
Well,
it.
who knows?
Little
Who knows?
intuition.
Maybe the Rams weren't willing to give him the crazy bag that he got, from Buffalo. But listen, like we're already talking about. Let's get right into the Thursday night review. Um, Stafford, didn't look good out there, right?
No.
And it's kind of scary to see what the Bills defense was looking like, without Tre'Davious White. They looked really good. So with
Yeah.
Tre'Davious White, a shutdown corner, they're going to be a really good defense, assuming they stay
Yeah.
healthy.
As they've been the past few years. But it really looks like Von Miller was a big difference. He
Yeah.
kind of powered up the entire defensive line. That one guy, Phillips, I forget what his first name is, but never really heard his name before. He came through with 2 sacks or 1.5, but they
Yeah,
were making impact plays all night.
for sure, man. And we're talking about Allen Robinson. Matt Stafford didn't even know he was on the football field, right?
It
Like
didn't seem like
15
it.
targets for Cooper Kupp. All he did was look Kupp's way, for good reason, obviously. But Robinson was nowhere to be found all game long. Super disappointing. One target the entire game, until some random target, in the end zone at the end of the game on 4th down.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not panicking on Allen Robinson just yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't panic really on any players, but some of them are much more concerning than others.
I feel like you're going to be panicking on Cam Akers. Like you kind of have to be panicking if you draft the Cam Akers in the 4th round, right? But
Yeah, kind of.
Listen, we'll get there. But like Allen Robinson, like this is one of the worst showings I think we're going to see from this Rams offense this year. Like they
Yeah.
went up against a tough defense, and Stafford threw for only 240 yards. That happened only 4 times last year. Where he threw for like around 240 or less in the 17 games that he played. So
Right.
the good thing about Robinson is that he ran a route on 48 of Stafford's 50 dropbacks. So I
Yeah.
think he's going to be fine. Stafford, this athletic article came out, and I think it was Matt Silva. Or who was it? It was Evan Silva, sorry.
Mhm.
Tweeted out and said that Matt Stafford, he attributed Al Robinson's disappearance to the to the Bills playing almost exclusively zone and playing a ton of cover two.
Right.
Matt Harmon then commented on that and said that this kind of makes sense because Allen Robinson's really, really, really good against zone. I'm sorry, against man, but
Mhm.
he's relatively average against zone coverage, which is interesting, right? And
Mhm.
then you have Cooper Kupp, who is one of the best receivers against zone coverage. according to reception perception. So interesting takes there, right? I
Yeah.
still didn't see the all 22 yet. I plan on doing that today because I do want to see what's up with Allen Robinson. But if they truly are playing zone, if they did play zone all game long, and Matt Stafford's saying that they only played man like twice the entire game, then to me, there's no point in me watching the all 22 because the whole point of it is I wanted to see if Allen Robinson was able to separate. So I think
Right.
that was the real issue there. So you look at last year, Robert Woods, right? He also had only 4 targets in week 1,
Yeah.
right? Not a good game, but he had 9 targets in week 2.
Yeah.
Tyler
No.
Higbee had 11 targets in yesterday's
Yeah,
game.
that was
Like,
a little interesting. You
I
didn't
don't
do
think
much
that's
with
going to
him,
happen.
but
He didn't do anything. Like I said yesterday, super uninspiring. He couldn't do anything with 11 targets. So Cup had a 38% target share. I think we should see a bit of a correction moving forward. So I'm not hitting the panic button just yet.
yeah, on any of the receivers, I wouldn't. And it just goes to show, Cooper Kupp's a fantasy cheat code because even in a game where they scored 10 points and turned the ball over a bunch, he still had 31 PPR points, was it? He was targeted 15 times. It's not a question of, volume of talent at this point. The question is Matthew Stafford throwing the football? If Matthew Stafford's throwing the football, Cooper Kupp's going to be getting the volume that he needs. And that was one of my big takeaways because even in a bad showing, he was elite. With Allen Robinson, I'm not hitting the panic button on him either. Like I said, it's week 1. This isn't like they played the Jaguars and came out and looked like this. This is the Bills, the Super Bowl favorites. I'm not putting it past them. We saw this same type of performance, a strong defense from Green Bay in week 1 last year. No one thought that the Saints really had a shot against them, and the Saints ended up blowing them out. That's kind of how I look at it. Stafford, there were questions about his elbow injury, that kind of thing, all this stuff. It was just a long off season coming into it, Super Bowl hangovers kind of a thing. At least it looked like it. I'm not worried about Matthew Stafford. They got 10 days to come back, turn around, and fix what they, fix the mistakes that they had. I think they'll be fine. I'm not hitting the panic button on anybody but Cam Akers, but we'll get to him.
Let's get there right now. Let's just talk about it right now.
Right.
Like Cam Akers, the dude didn't see the field at all.
2 touches.
Right? Like,
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, and I think maybe 3. I don't remember, but it doesn't matter. Darrell Henderson started the game. He never left the field. He had 82% snap share. The bell cow for this offense in this game. 18 total opportunities. Cam Akers was nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Now we were a little bit worried about Cam Akers coming into the game, right? We were like, maybe this is going to be a 50-50 split, but he should get goal line opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And this is not, and nobody saw this coming, right? Like everybody thought that he was going to be involved, but maybe he wouldn't be as efficient because coming off the Achilles, all of the Cam Akers deniers, like we weren't necessarily deniers, I would say. I think we were optimistic, right? But dude, did not see this coming at all.
No, not at all. And if you're looking for a silver lining as a Cam Akers owner, I look at Darrell Henderson, and he wasn't exactly efficient. He wasn't exactly very, inspiring with the touches that he got. He had 5 receptions, but only 26 yards, under 4 yards a carry easily. It wasn't obviously a good performance overall for the Rams offense, but Darrell Henderson, I don't think he separated himself, from Cam Akers that much last night at all. I think that Cam Akers not getting touches goes back a lot to the injury situation. There were questions about his health going in, but they said that he was going to be fine, that he'd see the field. It was just, I would have been okay. I wouldn't be panicking as much as I am if he got like 6 or 8 touches, or maybe he got a little early down work, but this was like not seeing the ball at all. And when he did get the ball, he did nothing with it. And, you can put that on the Rams offensive line being, crap last night, but it wasn't inspiring at all. I don't like that Cam Akers got the ball 2 times, did nothing with it. I'm panicking because especially where he was drafted, like we said, if it was anywhere in the 4th round, you're sitting there thinking you might have the value, that this guy might actually turn around and be a lot better than his draft value indicates. And it was just completely out of left field.
Yeah. I'm not so worried that Akers didn't do much with the ball because he was stopped in the backfield a couple times. But what I'm really worried about is where is he at and why didn't he see the field?
Right.
Did he not see the field because he's still recovering from the Achilles? Is he not seeing the field because he's still, not 100% from the soft tissue injury that he just had a couple weeks ago? That's my hope, right? Like I'd rather that I'd rather that, he is not 100% from the soft tissue injury and they're just making sure that he doesn't have, re-aggravation, right? That's what I'm
Obviously.
hoping for. And Sean McVay is not going to give you any clue to what the actual
No.
situation is. What we're going to, if that is the case, we're just going to see Akers pop up in a random game when you thought in week 5, when Darrell Henderson, you thought that Darrell Henderson was the RB1, right, on this team and a fantasy RB1. If he's getting this type of volume, dude, like Akers is going to all randomly show up with like 60% of the work, right?
Right.
We're
No,
never going to
I can
know
hear
when
that.
it's going to happen. And that's part of the reason why I can't drop Cam Akers right now, right? Like
Oh,
I'm not going to,
no.
like, you
Yeah,
hold
we're
on to
not
him,
talking about dropping Cam Akers. No.
keep him on your bench. You don't start Cam Akers next week, right? I would start Darrell Henderson as a RB2. Okay. The
Mhm.
type of work that he got yesterday with his 5 targets on top of his 13 carries, and he caught all 5 of his targets. Like that is low end RB1 numbers right there. His snap shares RB1 numbers as well. And the fact that they went against a tough defense and he was still able to put up some numbers without scoring a touchdown is a good sign, for Darrell Henderson. And, he didn't get any goal line opportunities or anything like that. So, you know, like we can start seeing a split happening at some point between these two guys. You never know, right?
Mhm.
But Akers, he wasn't on the injury report, right? He was
Yeah.
practicing in full. A 0 in your fantasy lineup, like that stings especially on a Thursday, because you got to live with it. Thursday night, going to bed,
Not
you're
just the
trying to go to
Thursday.
sleep. You're trying to go to sleep, and you're just like, okay, Makers, no. You're just like,
Yeah.
it sucks. Saturday,
It
you gotta deal with it. Friday, you gotta deal with it, and then going into Sunday, you're trying to compensate with like high upside guys so you can win your matchup. And then on top of that, you went against Stephon Diggs, and you're really feeling like shit.
yeah.
I get
Well,
it. I get it.
not only, that happens on a Thursday, but it happens kickoff weekend. The first game of the fantasy season, you have high hopes going into it, and you know he shits the bed. So
Yeah,
that's not never a good feeling.
exactly.
You don't want to speculate too much either on Cam Akers, you know, injury wise. But you imagine if they only plan to use him for 3 carries, whatever it was, why even have him suit up? You know what I mean? Like
Why have him suit
why?
up? Yeah, I guess so. But if Darrell
Right?
Henderson got hurt, what would have happened? And then you worry about you think about Kyron Williams.
Yeah. But
You
that's the
think
thing.
about Kyron Williams.
They've been talking so highly about Cam Akers, how they're going to be doing this. Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson are both going to have a role, and then Cam Akers just inexplicably gets 3 carries and does nothing at all. Like this looked like a healthy scratch situation essentially, but you don't want to call it a healthy scratch because we heard about injuries. It was something that I don't think anybody was expecting at all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And what's interesting about this, and Ian Hartitz, tweeted this out, and I just started dying laughing when he did. Ian Hartitz, if you don't follow him, he's like one of the funniest dudes in the fantasy space. Works over at PFF. Uh, he tweeted out, when Kyron Williams ended up getting hurt. I think he hurt his ankle pretty early in that game, and he was like kind of declared out or questionable to return. But he tweeted out, I said, "Oh, now that Kyron Williams got hurt, Cam Akers, is finally like the RB2, right?"
Yeah.
And it's like it's funny because you think about it. There's some truth to that. It's like, well, would Kyron Williams have gotten more playing time than Cam Akers, right? And
Yeah.
that was shaping out to be true because if Cam Akers was only going to be on the field for 2 or 3 touches and Kyron Williams was already on the field to get hurt, what would have happened, right? Would
Yeah.
he have been on the field to spell Darrell Henderson? So interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff. So I'm really looking forward to see what happens next week. But let's move on to the Bills side, man. Stephon Diggs
Yeah.
absolutely lit it up, right? 9 targets, 8 catches, 122 yards, and a long touchdown towards the end of the game. Listen, there was a reason why he was one of the best for late first round picks for fantasy,
Yeah.
right? Gabriel Davis, he came through on that broken play for a touchdown. I know you were happy about that. I was going up against
Oh yeah.
you. I had Allen Robinson. You had Gabe Davis. So the good thing about
Yeah.
Gabe Davis, now it was a broken play that he caught the touchdown on. The good thing about Gabe Davis was that he ran a route on every single one of Josh Allen's dropbacks. It's what
Yeah.
you want to see, right? Stephon Diggs, for some reason, was being taken off the field after every catch. I don't know what was going on there. That doesn't matter. He's going to get it done for you. But Gabriel Davis had 5 targets, only a 16% target share, but he's like a big play touchdown type of guy. I don't think he's going to see that high target share all the time. But on a good offense, he'll come through more often than not. You know.
Yeah. With
Um,
with with the Bills receivers, first of all, I just would like to note that as of week 1, my next Jamar Chase T Higgins prediction is not looking too shabby. Um, also on that note, I think this is exactly what we kind of projected for Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis didn't get nearly the number of looks of Stephon Diggs, but he made the most of them, and he was a deep play threat. He had, was it a connection over 40 yards? It was a catch over 40 yards, another catch over 25 yards, which was his touchdown, and a couple other grabs for like intermediate gain, 8 to 15 yards. It looked really good. I was happy with what I saw. That's exactly what I was projecting for him. But the thing for me is Stephon Diggs, it looked like the Stephon Diggs of 2020. Not that 2021 Stephon Diggs was bad, but this was, being constantly targeted, just peppered with targets, and the connection with Josh Allen was there. And that's like on that one back shoulder pass, it just came out. Josh Allen it was like a one-step drop and just drilled it back shoulder to Stephon Diggs across the middle, right across the face of a linebacker. He turned around, caught it. It's just that connection doesn't happen with a bunch of other quarterbacks and receivers. And that's what makes Stephon Diggs such a good player for fantasy. As long as Josh Allen's throwing the ball, Stephon Diggs, just, pencil him in. That's the type of performance I'm expecting to see more of and often this season.
100%, man. 100%. Dawson Knox, he only had a 6% target share, 2 targets. I think that should bounce back. However, 66% route participation isn't too encouraging for him. That needs to go up to like 80% if we want him to be a solid fantasy contributor. Now, it is possible that Knox just stayed in, as much as possible. But we'll see, what this team wants to do with Knox and whether he's going to be running more routes or not. 86% snap percentage is good. So maybe he was just blocking more often than he normally would. But still low end 10-1 next week. We'll see how that goes. Isaiah McKenzie, I think, he did score a touchdown, but I think you can drop him. Like if you picked him up and you want to pick up somebody else, let's say you're on Sleeper on Yahoo, you can drop him now, even though he played. Like I know on ESPN by default, you can't. Every player gets locked, even if they're on your bench. Assuming you didn't play him, you can potentially drop him because he did catch a touchdown, but he split time. He split time with Jamison Crowder. If McKenzie was an every down guy and wasn't rotating, if he was the slot guy, I'd keep him. But he only had 3 targets, 55% route participation, not great. The only wide receivers you want rostered on this offense right now is Diggs and Davis.
Yeah, I'm with it. And I kind of saw this one coming. And, I know you felt a little vindication when Isaiah McKenzie caught that touchdown, especially after that bad drop interception.
Just in case people started him, right? Like, I thought he was like a desperate flex if you needed one. But yeah, for those who started him, yeah, sure, you got the touchdown, but nothing. His usage wasn't worth hanging your hat on.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I expected. When you have Stephon Diggs, you have Gabe Davis, and we'll get to the running backs in a minute. They were really involved. There's not much room for anyone outside of the big two in Diggs and Davis. I mean, you'll have your occasional touchdown like we saw, and Jamison Crowder was actually, pretty good. He was good as a player to spell Isaiah McKenzie, but neither of them have the workload that we're looking for, or the big play threat. Like you could say Gabe Davis, he only got 2 more targets than Isaiah McKenzie, but Gabe Davis's targets were much, much more high quality, what's called fantasy targets than
for sure
Isaiah McKenzie. Yeah.
100%. And you mentioned the Bills backfield. Singletary, he was the main guy. He started the game. He was on the field for the first few drives. Zach Moss did end up rotating with him quite a bit, though. James Cook, he ended up getting the carry. He lost a fumble on that carry and pretty much never saw him again. Not a great start for him. Don't drop James Cook just yet. We've seen over the last 2 seasons, this backfield has been moving and rotating, and nobody was able to really just like grab this backfield by the horns. And I'm saying, like, we haven't seen that yet. If you drafted James Cook in the 9th, 10th round, don't drop him just yet. Be a little bit more patient. I'm hoping that the Bills are a little bit more patient with him because they weren't patient with him yesterday.
No, but for me, when I saw James Cook fumble his first carry in the NFL, I had like flashbacks to Kareem Hunt when the Chiefs. He did the exact same thing. I was like, are we gonna have like a James Cook explosion now? Because like it's a good offense. I was wondering if that was gonna happen, but unfortunately it didn't. They kept him on a short leash, And instead of reminding me of Kareem Hunt the rest of the night, it reminded me of James Robinson and Urban Meyer last year. You fumble the ball once and you're done, doghouse. But
I know, dude.
I
I
was
know,
actually
dude.
I was actually surprised with Zach Moss's usage in the passing game. I mean, I know we talked about how Devin Singletary is not, a good receiving back. He's
Yep.
statistically last in yards per route run, but I thought James Cook would get at least a shot in the passing game. I don't think they
He
didn't
didn't.
throw it his way once, so that kind of had me scratching my head. Not that I was anticipating big things, but I thought maybe we could get a little intel, at least
For sure.
see what James Cook could do. So I was a little disappointed in that. But Zach Moss, I think he's just going to be a pest.
Yeah, man. I agree with that. So we'll see what happens there. Zach Moss didn't really look particularly great. Singletary looked okay. Like he looked decent in this game.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming they will continue with somewhat of a rotation for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's all we got, for this game for the most part. Now,
on another note, Josh Allen
sure,
looked
go for it.
fantastic. That's exactly what we were looking for. Josh Allen was excellent. It was a little stressful at the beginning of the game when he wasn't running, but then the second half he came through and started running. Especially at that last point, like they were up 31-10 or whatever. And he was running the ball hard.
Yeah.
I think he was just excited to play.
I think he was trying to prove a point. Like he was pissed about that Chiefs game last year, right? He could have made it to the Super Bowl. He was pissed about that. On top of that, going up against Jalen Ramsey, like remember we all saw the comments of what Jalen Ramsey said a couple years ago, and it's been all over social media since yesterday's game, right? And he wanted to prove a point, man. And that's why, and that's part of the reason why he was making sure that Jalen Ramsey got beat. And Jalen Ramsey did not have a good game at all against Josh Allen. So Josh Allen got his vindication against Jalen Ramsey for sure. So that's what he wanted to do. He got it done. And he had a different type of swag to him yesterday, Josh Allen. Like he was getting hit. Remember that? Did you see that stiff arm that he put on, dude?
Yeah, Nick Scott.
Woo, dude, he
just
crazy. On the sideline, bang, the dude hit his head on the ground. That was intense right there.
Yeah, and then also his rushing touchdown. You see his one rushing touchdown where he literally like jumped from the 3-yard line.
Michael Jordan. Yep. Yeah. He did a little Mike, be like Mike move. That was dope. I love that. And listen, he was smiling the entire game. He was getting hit. He was hitting people, and he was smiling the entire time when he got up. So that he had something on his shoulder for that game. But it was cool to see, man. He's a fun player to watch. I'm a Jets fan, but I'm more of an NFL fan and just like watching all these players and watching Josh Allen yesterday, man. Like it's hard to not be a fan of his at this point.
Right.
All right, let's get into a little piece of news. There's not that much news since yesterday, but one piece of news from yesterday. Rondale Moore had an MRI after sustaining a hamstring injury in practice. That is not good. Not great when an MRI is involved. I would assume he's out this week. Zach Ertz, he also might be out for the Cardinals. So Marquise Brown might end up with 15 targets in this game. Like he's a must start at this point, and you're going to see in a second that I have him in my top 10 wide receivers for this week.
Right. Yeah.
And by the way, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go for it. I'm done with this topic.
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna note that we ranked, Marquise Brown with the idea that Rondale Moore won't be playing, and Rondale Moore didn't show up in the rankings either. Zach Ertz is in the rankings, but we have an injury designation on him, so if he doesn't play, just disregard him.
Exactly. Now, I will say while I bring these wide receiver rankings up, we're going to get into that right now. I'll be updating all the injury reports like on my Instagram story. So we'll be sending out a newsletter tomorrow as well, tomorrow morning around 12 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, where we kind of break down all of the injuries and whether we expect them to play or not, what the practice status was and all of that. So you kind of will get that, broken down for you. But I'll also talk about it on my Instagram story as well. So you just keep, just stay in tune with that.
Mm-hmm.
So you get some updates. So let's share the first wide receiver. All right, here we go. No surprise at the top, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, basically just continuing where he left off, dude. Like the dude, is getting it done. Justin Jefferson, at number one, there's nothing wrong with that going up against the Packers. Now, I mentioned Marquise Brown at number 9. right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think that there's any problem with putting him at number 9. Like I'm a big fan of Marquise Brown this week, man. Like
Yeah.
you can't sit him this week. All right, Zach Ertz banged up, no Hopkins, no Rondell Moore. The
Mm-hmm.
targets are likely to be concentrated towards Marquise Brown. Like, and having Brown in the top 10 might seem a little crazy to a lot of people, but only Cooper Kupp had more top 12 finishes than Marquise Brown last year. He's already a
Yeah.
high target share player. He's 12th. He was 12th in target share last year, right? He was 7th in target share the year before. And now he's back with his college quarterback on a more pass-friendly offense that runs a lot of plays.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned, Kansas City also lost Charvarius Ward, who was their top corner last year, lost him to the 49ers. So we're looking at a situation that Marquise Brown can potentially, really blow up in this spot. And it'll be really hard for me not to have him in my lineup this week.
Right. No, I agree. I'm looking at the rest of the rankings and other players that are around. This is a bet that the situation is going to outweigh, other players. I think Marquise Brown's going to be a target hog this week just because they played in college. And I feel like it's going to be like, the reunion game. And that's kind of, I don't want to say that every reunion game is going to go well. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow worked out. We're going to see about Devontae Adams and Derek Carr. But there really isn't anybody else to throw to in the Cardinals offense, which, at the beginning of the season, we're like, on paper, the Cardinals receiving core is stacked, but they're missing a bunch of guys. And Marquise Brown, the guy that they didn't have going into the offseason last season, is now easily the number one. I think 9 is justified, even over Michael Pittman.
Yeah. And I have Michael Pittman at 10. He's going up against a rookie in Derek Stingley, obviously, a highly touted rookie, and Steven Nelson on the outside. Houston did allow the second most fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers last year. And obviously, they have a new defensive scheme this year with Lovie Smith coming in. A new cornerback rotation this year can change things. But I think their secondary, just isn't that good. So I think Pittman can have a big day.
We're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Pittman can have a pretty big day on Sunday.
All right.
Also, the Colts, the Colts are like have one of the. I think they're top 5 in implied point total this week, so they're going to be scoring points.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they go up quick, it's going to be because of Michael Pittman. I think over anybody else in the passing game.
Yeah. Anybody else you want to comment on in the top 10? AJ Brown at number 8. What do you think about that?
I think that's a good ranking. I think that 5 through 8, they're all projected very similar. AJ Brown, like they could go any way. I like CeeDee Lamb just at 5 because he's pretty much locked in for volume. Devontae Adams, not so locked in, but we know the talent he is, and he played with Derek Carr. I think that's justified over Mike Evans. Mike Evans might have a little bit more competition, depending on whether or not Chris Godwin plays. We're still waiting to hear about that. That's going to be a game time decision. And AJ Brown, I think, is locked in. I think he's going to get good volume. I think that the Eagles are still, I don't think they're going to jump right away from the running attack. Like they were really committed to the running game last season. I don't think they're going to get away from that immediately, very quickly, but they'll definitely be more pass geared. And AJ Brown at 8 feels good.
Yeah. No, I feel you on that one. I mean, I feel like if Godwin doesn't play though, and I kind of have a feeling that he's not going to play. If he doesn't play, and even if he does play, to be honest, like Mike Evans is probably still going to be a little bit of a target hog. Just because like he's only like the really like true piece that Tom Brady still has. That he's 100%, he's good to go. You know what I'm saying? And like he can depend on him. This week. That's kind of how I see. Now, I'm looking at 11 through 20 right here. Allen Robinson at 16, just sticking out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm gonna have to sit with these rankings for a good like 5 to 10 minutes here. I just want to get over with this slide as soon as possible. Let's just get right through it, dude.
Realistically, though, was anyone holding over your head even before the game for having Allen Robinson ranked there? I don't think so. This wasn't the same Rams offense that we were projecting that we saw last night. So I don't think they can blame you right now for having him ranked there. Obviously, in the future, if you rank him there again, maybe next week, maybe we'll have issues.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
I
don't. I don't blame you for ranking him there. I think that felt just about where I would put him.
See, Zach. See, that's why I keep you around, dude. That's why I keep you around, brother. You just have a way. You just have a way about you.
I'm a forgiving guy.
All right, looking at Tyreek Hill at number 12. So by the way, so we didn't we probably just like we kind of skimmed over the rankings. Like people who listen to the podcast, they probably don't know who number 1 to 10 was, but you kind of have an idea of who it was after what we talked about. I think Zach kind of went over it too. But we got Keenan Allen at number 11, Tyreek Hill at number 12, T Higgins at 13, followed by Cortland Sutton, Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson, Debo Samuel, Mike Evans, DJ Moore number 19, and then Terry McLaurin at number 20. Tyreek Hill, he's had some decent games against the Patriots in the past, obviously with the Chiefs, but it's interesting because, you would think, off the top of your head, like, oh, Belichick, he probably game plan for Tyreek Hill. He probably has his number, but no, that's not the case. Tyreek Hill has basically averaged 100 receiving yards per game and more than a touchdown against them in his career, which was pretty surprising to me when I looked it up. And now
I actually did the exact same thing. I was like,
did you really?
Let's try and project Tyreek Hill by looking at past performance against the Patriots. And the first two weren't as inspiring, but then the one game they had like 39 points. Just like,
he had like 150 yards or 170 yards and 3 touchdowns or something ridiculous like that. But with Tua, let's see what Tyreek Hill can do. There is a chance that he is the focal point of this Dolphins passing offense. There's a good chance that that's the case. So looking forward to see what he can do with Tua. At number 14, we have Cortland Sutton. I think he has to come through on Monday night in order for me to redeem myself for Allen Robinson, because he's like one of the guys I've been touting as well.
So 2 names stand out on this list to me, and one of them is Cortland Sutton. And I was going to say, because I have huge expectations for Cortland Sutton, especially with the report saying that Russell Wilson's targeting him as the number 1. I think that you will have redeemed yourself if he does well. I think he's going to do very well. And like I said, I think even 14 might be a little low for the ranking. I think it's just a conservative ranking right now compared to where he'll be the rest of the season because, we haven't seen him on the field yet. But I think that one's a guy that can move way up.
I hope so. So. So Artie Burns, is not a good corner. He might be there. He might not play on Monday as a possibility, but there's not going to be much experience back there to defend Cortland Sutton behind him. Right. You have a guy named Michael Jackson starting. I'm not joking. Okay. At corner. The dude has 4 games in 3 years to his name. Okay. And then you have the rookie Tariq Woolen, who was taken in the 5th round of this past NFL draft. So not great. Sutton is in line to have a great game on Monday night. And he might be a big part of that Russell Wilson redemption story.
Mm-hmm. The only thing that could go wrong for him is game script. They get ahead early. There can be no reason to be throwing it. But maybe Seattle comes out with like a renewed fight and just like this energy trying to stick it to Russell Wilson. But I don't really see that happening. So
I hear you. Now I'm looking at number 17, Debo Samuel. Mm-hmm. It might seem a little bit low. Now I initially had him at low. It does, right? Like with him at 9, like I had him at 19 initially, man. But like with Kittle likely out, I did move him up 2 spots. Now listen, he finished as the wide receiver 3 last year. Like wide receiver 17 is gonna feel really, really low. So, but the thing is, like, I'm not convinced that him and Trey Lance have the rapport just yet. And either way, like listen, he's gonna be in your lineup, right? Regardless, like because the Bears are not good. Their secondary is one of the worst in the NFL. And I feel like I got to move them up a little bit, even more. But I do like these. I'm looking at these other guys, like obviously besides Allen Robinson. I'm looking at these other guys. I can't stop looking at Allen Robinson at 16. And I kind of like these other guys more. Like I like Brandon Cooks because I know he's going to get the targets. I like Cortland Sutton. I like T Higgins. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So like I just like these guys more than Debo in terms of like kind of like, a little bit of a guaranteed target share.
Yeah. For me, I feel like Debo Samuel being ranked at 17 is like ranking him at, I don't want to call it his floor, but on the lower end spectrum if things don't go well. That's kind of where I see that. You're obviously starting Debo with hopes that he's going to be the, wide receiver 3 overall like he was last season. But, this is a completely different quarterback. Brandon Ayuk has had somewhat of an emergence, apparently, this training camp in the preseason. So he's looking good. I would say George Kittle, but he might not play. But the offense might take a little bit to gel. Yeah, I see you got the graphic off the screen. But the offense might take a little bit to gel. So Debo Samuel, I think 17 is ranking conservatively. If he does finish there, you'll get props for it. But if he finishes higher, it's like you can't really blame it. Right before we get back to the next graphic, I want to say one more
Yep.
thing about DJ
Sure.
Moore being ranked
Yes,
at
do that.
19. I
Yeah.
think that he is. I think that's a very low ranking, and I think that he's going
Yeah.
to outperform it by a mile. And that's just because Baker Mayfield. I'm not saying Baker Mayfield's a great quarterback, but he's the best quarterback that DJ Moore has had. DJ Moore is talented. If he gets the same type of opportunity that he had last season, I think he'll be able to capitalize on it much more. Much more. The quality of the targets coming in, I think, is going to be much higher. We might finally see the DJ Moore breakout that we've been waiting for. Yeah, I think what's called Sundays can be very telling about how the rest of the season is going to go. I expect big things. I think 19 is a little low. I might even, obviously hindsight's 2020. I would have him where Allen Robinson is. I would put DJ Moore at 16.
I can see that. Basically, put him before Debo.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think you're right about that.
I think he's locked in for volume that he wasn't in past seasons just because of the quarterback play. Like if Sam Darnold was still starting, I wouldn't be excited about it. But this is DJ Moore. And we haven't really seen Baker Mayfield on a non-run heavy offense. So who knows? They could unleash him.
I hope so. So. And I think you're right. That's a very, very conservative ranking. I should probably have him around 15 or something like that. I think I agree with that. I agree with you. I mean, all the points that you're making make sense because I'm talking about those other guys having guaranteed target share. Seems like DJ Moore's going to have that as well, right?
Yeah. And you don't want to rank it based solely on target share, but we've seen DJ Moore, the talent that he has too, and I think he's just been kind of restrained.
No, I think you're right, man. I think you're right. I'm going to move him up. All right, moving on to 21 to 30, we have Jalen Waddle at 21, Deontay at 22, followed by Elijah Moore, Gabriel Davis, Rashad Bateman. And by the way, the reason why I have these guys locked in, like I had Allen Robinson at 16, is because like these rankings lock, right? So like these rankings were done before Thursday night's game. So it's not like I'm going to be moving them. I'm not even able to move them like on Fantasy Pros, for example. Like they're locked in. This is what I had at before the game, so I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to change it after the fact.
We're not in the business of lying to you guys and being untruthful.
Exactly. So and then we have Elijah Moore at 23, Gabriel Davis at 24, Rashad Bateman at 25, followed by DK Metcalf, Michael Thomas, Juju Smith-Schuster, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 29, and Jerry Jeudy at number 30. Now, I got Deontay at 22. We'll see if Deontay ends up playing. He was limited all week, and he's saying that he's taking one day at a time. No word on whether he'll play this week. Let's see if he gets another limited practice today. If he does, there's still a chance that he plays. And if he plays, he's going to probably be in my lineup. Like Deontay, he missed a game against Cincinnati last year, but he had a great game against them another time. And a lot of this secondary is back this year. It looks very similar to what they had last year. So, the one thing is like we'll see if Mitch Trubisky locks on to Deontay, to give him another season of very high target share. We'll see if George Pickens or Chase Claypool end up taking more of the share than we think to potentially bring Deontay's target share a little bit lower. That's going to be interesting to watch. Like if I had to guess, I would say Deontay Johnson's target share is still going to be over 25%, and George Pickens will be like a close second, if I had to guess right now, with Chase Claypool coming in third, but a little bit more distant.
Right. And Deontay Johnson, I was you could call me a Deontay Johnson hater over the offseason, but I think 2022 being ranked there, I think that feels about right. Just because I'm much more confident with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback than Kenny Pickett. And not that Kenny Pickett didn't impress me in the preseason. He did. But Mitch Trubisky's the best option right now for Deontay Johnson because we saw what he was able to do for Allen Robinson, even though, the Bears were a bad team. He was able to make Allen Robinson fantasy relevant before, everything went backwards and upside down on fire. But in that 2021 season. But, Deontay Johnson can be that guy. We obviously know he's a big target share guy. If he gets the same target share, 2020, I keep saying the year, 22 feels correct for where he's ranked.
Yeah, and I have Elijah Moore right after him. Elijah Moore had the best game of his career with Joe Flacco. He caught 8 of 11 targets last year for 141 yards and a touchdown. If you're wondering about whether you should have him in your lineup, you should. Okay, he's the number one target on that offense. Also, we have to remember the Ravens gave up the most fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers last year in the NFL. I'm not worried
Yeah.
about Marcus Peters potentially coming back. He's 31 years old, coming off the ACL. He's like the original Trevon Diggs, right? Allowing yards in coverage, but getting interceptions. Like, I want Elijah Moore
That is an
in my
interesting
lineup.
comparison.
I
Yeah,
want him in my lineup this week.
Yeah, Elijah Moore is definitely going in lineup. All these guys, like up to, I'd say up to Michael Thomas is where I'm, in the rankings. I'm just referencing up to where Michael Thomas, 27. I have all of them in my lineup regardless of what's going on. Juju Smith-Schuster is right where it kind of gets to be like, okay, should I be starting him over other guys? That kind of thing. That's just me. But Elijah Moore, we've been talking about the whole offseason. If you listen to us talking about the whole offseason and you don't put him in your lineup, that's your fault.
Yeah, man, seriously. Like, we were so big on him, and now that Joe Flacco's there, we know that he can get it done with him, right? So that's good to know. Michael Thomas, by the way, I want to talk about Gabriel Davis at 24, by the way. I think him at 24, from what his like opportunity looked like, seems like a solid ranking for him. So like, I'm happy with this ranking of Gabriel Davis. Like, borderline wide receiver 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I'm looking at Gabriel Davis this season. And that's kind of what he did in this game. Pretty much.
Every week, wide receiver 1 upside, I think. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's probably not going to finish as a wide receiver 1 in this past game, in like this week.
Yeah,
but he'll finish as a wide receiver 2, for sure.
Yeah. With Gabriel Davis, this is the kind of ranking where I kind of feel like T. Higgins falls into. And I think that T. Higgins is a little high. And we've been talking about that the whole offseason. I think at one point you had T. Higgins at 8. I wasn't a huge fan of that.
I have him as like a borderline wide receiver 1 right now, or a low-end wide receiver 1, pretty much.
I view T. Higgins and Gabe Davis in a very similar light. But that's
you're
just
crazy.
Me.
That's because you're crazy.
Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. I mean, listen, like T. Higgins, has earned target share in the past. We haven't seen that from Gabriel Davis, without a large sample size, but you never know,
Yeah.
But I do see similarities though. I get what you're saying. Pass heavy offenses, 2 wide receivers killing it, one obviously better than the other. But I think T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are a lot closer in talent than Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. Okay.
Yeah, I guess you could say it. For me, it's the connection that does it. With Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs have that connection where they're just very.
But there's no doubt that in the end zone, dude, in the red zone, like Gabriel Davis is like, he's going to be doing his thing all season.
Gabe Davis, the way, not even just the way he plays and his physical profile, but maybe even kind of the way he looks. And this just might be me. He kind of reminds me of like Mike Evans. Just a little bit faster.
I can see that.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's because they wear the same number. I don't know, but
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, just Mike Evans without the target share.
Right. Mike Evans, he's like Mike Evans, but just not as good. I get it.
Yeah.
It looks like Michael Thomas is on track to play. He will likely be the guy demanding the most target share here, but we'll see. He is coming off the injury. But we haven't seen him play fully healthy in a couple years now. We're hoping that he's a guy that we can continue to move up in the rankings. Like, we have him at 27 here. We know that his ceiling, is in top 15, top 12. So the hope is that continue every single week, we kind of move him up a little bit. Now, he is going to go up against Casey Hayward, AJ Terrell, but under the same defensive coordinator as last year, Dan Pease. The Falcons did allow the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So if it's a similar scheme and they don't have to depend, if they don't depend too much on these corners playing man to man on every play, we might, see some production out of these wide receivers this week.
Yeah. And, just a kind of bold prediction here, if I want to put out a bold prediction right now, just for that Saints Falcons game, I think we're going to see a lot more fireworks than we think. I think that we're looking at, I think that the score is going to blow whatever the line is for the game, the over under in terms of total points scored. I think we're looking at, an offensive shootout. That's what I think we're going to see. And it's going to surprise a lot of people with Marcus Mariota, but I think it's going to happen. Like, you look, it's like, oh, these two guys are having a mid-off. It's Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. But, they have good offense. They have pieces around them. I think this could be a surprisingly, a barn burner of a game.
I like it. All right, moving on to 31 through 40 here. We got Brandon Ayuk at 31, followed by Darnell Mooney, Amari Cooper, Adam Thielen, Chris Godwin at 35, assuming that he plays, Kadarius Toney at 36, Christian Kirk, Hunter Renfrow, Devontae Smith, and then Julio Jones at 40. Now, Brandon Ayuk, he's going to benefit big time from Kittle missing this game. Him and Lance already have a good connection. Coming out of camp, I can see Lance locking onto Ayuk in this game a bit. And against the Bears secondary, like I do want Ayuk in my lineup. I think that's a ton of upside to add to your flex.
Yeah, no, I like Brandon Ayuk. I think that the hype may have him a little bit higher than I would put him. I think that Amari Cooper at 33 would feel more appropriate if you switch them. I'd put Amari Cooper up just a little bit. But that has nothing to do with Brandon Ayuk. Actually, now that I think about it, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle's out. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now I'm on board.
I think if George Kittle was not,
yeah.
I think if George Kittle wasn't out, I wouldn't have Ayuk this high. If let's say George Kittle was playing, I think I would have Ayuk. I think I would have him right ahead of Hunter Renfrow. So I would have him around 38 or so, right behind Christian Kirk. That's kind of, I think, or maybe right ahead, like right in that range. That's kind of where I would have him. But since we're pretty sure George Kittle's out, we don't have George Kittle in these rankings. We're going to share the tight end rankings in a second. Yeah, I kind of like Brandon Ayuk there.
Yeah,
I
think so.
But we got Chris. Yeah, go ahead. I was going to move to the next one, but go ahead.
Yeah, the name that stands out to me is Amari Cooper on this, slide right here of our rankings because, we know Amari Cooper is a very talented receiver, and he just didn't have target share, I don't think. If you look at games where Amari Cooper got over 8 targets, he was a wide receiver 1 those weeks, every single time. It's just the problem of, when he was in Dallas, they had all these other receivers that drafted CeeDee Lamb as a luxury, that really hurt his volume. Amari Cooper looks to be the undisputed wide receiver 1 on the Browns. And even though it's Jacoby Brissett throwing them the ball, he's really the only option they have in the passing game as of today. So I think that he could surprise a couple people and show up, have a bigger game than people expect.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I do like that call. So we have Kadarius Toney here as well. He's off the injury report. And, while we're all caught up with guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, I think it's Toney who has the most upside of any of these Giants wide receivers. There's no one in the Titans secondary that scares me. I think it's a good matchup for Toney. And wherever he ends up lining up, like I think he has the advantage. So, and I do think he ends up moving around a little bit. We'll see what this, new head coach Brian Daboll has in store for him. But I'm very curious to see how he's used. He was using the slot a lot last year in his rookie year, but he might not be using the slot a whole lot this year. So I'm curious to see how he does on the outside, maybe against press coverage. Will he actually be using the slot? We thought that Wan'Dale was going to be that guy, right? So I'm curious to see A, how he's used, and B, how he does if he does end up being on the outside.
Yeah, I hear you there. The whole thing for me is I'm a little leery of the Giants offense overall. But
for sure.
Kadarius Toney's, if you're going to have anyone on the offense outside of Saquon, it's Kadarius Toney that you want.
Yeah. Now, Chris Godwin, we mentioned him. Still no word on him or whether he'll play. He didn't practice on Thursday, so keep an eye on his practice status today. I think they said they're going to make a call on him today, on Friday.
I saw a game time decision or something like that.
Yeah, so I did. And then I saw I think I saw that they were going to make a decision today. I think I saw that also. So we might not have to wait. That would be very helpful
for us fantasy managers.
It really would be. So we might not have to wait until Sunday. Maybe I'm confusing him with another player. Oh no, they were talking about J.K. Dobbins, that they were going to make a decision on Friday. I'm sorry.
Right.
So yes, I think you're right. Chris Godwin will most likely be a Sunday decision.
And especially if it's game time, then you're kind of screwed, because if you hold your spot open, you go through all the Sunday games, not playing Chris Godwin, and then you hear he's out. That's actually kind of pushing me away from starting him now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because what Zach's referring to is that game is on Sunday night. It's the Bucks Cowboys game is on Sunday night, so you're gonna have to make a decision about him early in the day. And if you don't know that whether he's gonna play or not, that's gonna be a tough decision to make. And most likely, you're gonna have to go away from Chris Godwin at that point.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at it now. Because unless you want to be pigeonholed and playing like Freddie Swain with Drew Lock at quarterback or something like that, I would actually, now that I'm thinking about it, considered maybe just leaving Chris Godwin on the bench this week.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to end up picking somebody up from the Monday night game, most likely like a KJ Hamler or something like that. That's what you're probably gonna end up doing. So we got Julio Jones at 40 here. Not 40 years old, but 40 in my rankings. I'm interested to see, how he's used. I don't know that he's a full-time player on the Bucks. Like
Hmm.
he played more than 70% of snaps only 3 times last year. It's possible he ends up moving up in my rankings like in the future. Like if he plays a sort of Gronk-like role, Brady's looking for him a ton in the red zone. But with Godwin likely not at 100% still, maybe he's used a bit more than he normally would. So I think throwing him in your flex this week is not a bad option.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Julio Jones also just pretty good. He usually tears up the Cowboys. So he has Tom Brady at quarterback now. Yeah, I'd take a shot, especially with, we're just like we're talking about Chris Godwin. If he doesn't even play, that'll be a big boost for Julio Jones. Um, this is a bet, I think, more on, the pedigree, the name. We know what Julio Jones can be is when he's healthy. And if anyone's going to bring it out of him, it's Tom Brady. So I'm not ecstatic, obviously, if I'm throwing Julio Jones in my lineup at this point, but, in a
Yeah,
pinch, yeah,
in a
I'll
pinch,
start him.
in a pinch, exactly. Because
Well, he could be
you,
the
you
guy
need
you
it.
go to if you have Chris Godwin, maybe Julio Jones floating
Yeah,
around on your waiver wire.
possible. Yeah. Um, Travis Kelsey at number one. We're moving on to tight ends now. Kyle Pitts, I have him at number two. That would be in line with your prediction, with your Falcons prediction
Yeah, yeah,
at
yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit of a shootout with New Orleans. Mark Andrews at three, followed by Dalton Schultz, Darren Waller, Dallas Goedert, TJ Hawkinson, Dawson Knox, Zach Ertz, and Cole Kmet. Now, Zach Ertz, obviously, he's a little bit banged up right now. No word on whether he's practicing. You know what? On the show right now, I'm gonna go check if he has made an appearance at practice. It's a little early. It's 1 p.m. Eastern time, so I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Um, Darren Urban has tweeted out in open part of Arizona Cardinals practice, tight end Zach Ertz was working. They didn't see Rondell Moore there, obviously, but Zach Ertz is practicing. He is
Okay.
running routes and stuff. So it's possible that we see a limited practice for Zach Ertz. That would be my expectation. If he practices in full, great. He's playing. Okay.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens there. So just keep an eye out. If you have Zach Ertz, if you're depending on him, make sure that you have a backup just in case he doesn't go. All right.
Yeah.
Um,
And for me, also just a note on the Cardinals, you're talking about Zach Ertz possibly playing. If he does play, I'm not even sure I'd worry about moving Marquise Brown around in the rankings because I think that might just make, the Cardinals offense a little bit more efficient. It's easy to say, oh, there's only one receiver like Marquise Brown on the Cardinals offense for this week, and he'll be hyper targeted. But sometimes that's not the case, and the offense just suffers as a result because there's nobody else to throw to. If Zach Ertz even does play, even if it's in limited capacity, I think it only helps the offense, and Marquise Brown might be better off for it.
and there you go. And Marquise Brown is just known to be an efficient receiver.
He's worked with a
Catching
good
balls
tight end
downfield.
before, Mark Andrews, so
Oh yeah.
clearly he can get it done. But
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So Travis Kelsey, obviously at number one for me. For me, it's obvious. Okay.
yeah,
No more Tyreek Hill in Kansas City. He's going to be doing his thing. Kyle Pitts. Now, the reason why I have Kyle Pitts over Mark Andrews is because I do feel like Kyle Pitts is going to take a big step forward this year.
yeah,
With Marcus Mariota, a quarterback who has really good experience of making fantasy tight ends relevant in the past. He did it with Delaney Walker. Kyle Pitts is a different animal. We
yeah,
didn't see the real Kyle Pitts last year. First of all, he was one of the most productive rookie tight ends in history, right? We
yeah,
knew that he was going to be a free coming into the NFL. And this year, he has Drake London as his wide receiver one. So now he finally gets some pressure off of him and he's going to
yeah,
move back inside. You want him to play in line. That's where you want him running routes from. You want him to be playing in the slot. So I just feel like he is going to explode, because of that, right? And
yeah.
I do see him locking on to Kyle Pitts a little bit, Marcus Mariota. So
Hmm.
that's part of the reason why I have him there. Lamar Jackson, he has Mark Andrews. Obviously, Mark Andrews is going to be able to do his thing as well, obviously, but Mark Andrews didn't do as good. His numbers were very inflated because of the fact that Lamar Jackson was not the quarterback for a little stretch of the season last year.
Yeah.
How are you looking at these three? Would you play Mark Andrews over Kyle Pitts? It doesn't matter. All these guys are in your lineup, but who would you prefer?
Yeah, so I'm putting. I think the rankings that you have are accurate. I like Travis Kelsey number one because Patrick Mahomes is going to be locking on Kelsey. We know that. That's just common knowledge. Everybody knows. You know, Travis Kelsey ranked number 1. That's the way it's been for the past 5 years now. But but Kyle Pitts at 2, I think, is right. I think that's fair over Mark Andrews, just because, you know, the Ravens, they're a run heavy team. Obviously, that Lamar Jackson, you know, he's back. You know, they're going to be playing against a rough team in the Jets. Not to crap all over your team, but
It's
Kyle
fine. I
Pitts,
do
I
it.
just think he, like I said, and going along with my prediction for a shootout in Atlanta, Kyle Pitts is going to be the primary beneficiary if there is a shootout, because he's going to be catching passes. I'd argue touchdowns. I think 2 touchdowns, that would be awesome. Obviously, he didn't have the touchdowns last season, but this season, I think he could open up really strong against the Saints. So I agree with your rankings. Yes.
I hear that. Dalton Schultz at number 4. I just think that he's going to be the second option there. With the Cowboys, it's going to be a high scoring game. So I like Schultz a little bit over Darren Waller. With Darren Waller, he's coming off a little bit of a soft tissue injury. We don't know like how severe that is. We don't know if
Yeah.
he's like 100% good to go. It seems like he's okay. It seems like more of a contract dispute than anything.
Mhm.
However, we really want to see what his target share is going to look like with Devontae Adams in the fold, right? That's
Yeah.
pretty important to me. It's a pretty important piece of information I don't have right now, because there's no guarantee that he is the second target, right? Hunter
Yeah.
Renfro can be the second target as well, and if Darren Waller's third, where does that put him in this tight end ranking? I still think he could be top 5, top 6. He can
Yeah.
even be top 3, if he's extremely efficient with Devontae Adams. I can see that happening. However,
Yeah.
I'd rather play Dalton Schultz, guaranteed target share, serious opportunity.
Yeah, for me with Darren Waller, you know, and I wouldn't overreact to whatever target share he does get. I wouldn't overreact if he does very well in target share this week, because this is a matchup that pretty much has, you know, shootout written all over it. We saw how the games went
Yes.
last season. So this could be overinflated passing numbers that we're not going to see every week, because this is just it's a marquee matchup. 2 very good teams. It's going to be, you know, fireworks. So if Darren Waller ends up getting 8 or 9 targets, along with Devontae Adams getting 12 or 15 targets, you know, I don't think that's sustainable week to week. So obviously, that's only if he does really well, you know. Otherwise, you know, that's just how it's going to be. I think that we shouldn't get caught up in the quality of this matchup.
I think Dallas Goedert, is an interesting one because he's somebody who I can totally see vaulting into like the top 4 tight end
Yeah.
discussion. He's that talented, and if this team really truly does move into a pass heavy attack like I think they want to do with the weapons that they do have, I do think that Dallas Goedert can potentially make that leap. He was number 1 in
Yeah.
yards per route run last year. He's extremely efficient. We know how good he is. We know how talented he is. There's a reason why the Eagles were happy to trade away Zach Ertz and have Goddard as their primary tight end, as their only tight end. So I want him in my lineups no matter what. TJ Hawkinson, followed by Dawson Knox. We saw what happened with him. Hopefully he bounces back next week, has a higher participation in terms of the pass game. And we have Cole Kmet to kind of round it out at number 10. Cole Kmet, isn't a sure thing either, right? Obviously, we have George Kittle not in these rankings because we're not expecting him to play. He wouldn't have made the top 10 otherwise. But Cole Kmet, we don't know what for sure if he's going to have a very high route participation or not. In the preseason with the first team, it was around 65%. You want it to be higher. You want it to be around 75, 80% for a tight end to be able to be a top 10 guy, unless they're like super duper efficient. And in this offense, like, do we really expect a ton of touchdowns, right? Probably not. And that's part of the reason why Kmet didn't get a ton of touchdowns last year, because even though he was targeted a good amount. So keep that in mind. This offense isn't really slated to make, to take a big step forward, right, in terms of scoring. But there is a chance that Kmet has a high target share this year.
Yeah. And sometimes that's, all it takes for a tight end. Tight end position is so shallow. We're kind of getting in, and you'll see on this next graphic, it's pretty much streamers after the top 7 or 8, unless you consider like Dawson Knox in that group, right on the edge with Zach Ertz. But it's a pretty bleak outlook after this. I mean, I'm looking at the rankings now. Tyler Higbee at 15, I'm not sure if the usage that we saw last night is going to be repeated or if it's going to
I
be
don't think it
replicated.
is.
But
11 targets is not going to happen. And look what he did with 11 targets. He didn't do anything.
yeah, it's interesting though, because at least he's getting looks. You know, I mean, that counts. Like
Yeah.
you look at the other guys that could be on the field. You know, like we don't know about Albert O. Obviously he's ranked a little bit higher, and we don't. This is in hindsight from last night, but you know, if I have to pick from a streaming option like this, I'll take the guy that had 11 targets at one point. Obviously, you know, if he gets the 5 or 6, and these are all backup options, but
Yeah, for sure. Now, I will say about David Njoku, I think out of all these guys, I think we know that he's going to have a high route participation. I think Pat Frymuth is going to have a high route participation.
yeah.
Albert O, it's still a question mark, right? We think that he will. We're assuming that he will, but we don't know for sure. But he is a guy that has a little bit of upside, so I'm willing to throw him in my lineup week 1 if I need a streamer. Irv Smith,
Mm-hmm.
same thing. We assuming that he is going to have close to 85% route participation. He is good to go. He's off the injury report. So you can start him week 1. That estimation that they said that he's going to be back for week 1, that held true. Unlike Zach Wilson, who they said he'll be ready for week 1, but now he'll be ready for week 4.
Yeah.
So you never know what you're going to get with any team, but it looks like he'll be good to go. Gerald Everett, really, he's somebody that's very interesting to me because this offense is going to be really good, right? And they're going to be pass heavy. They're going to be running a lot of plays. And this week is going to be a very high scoring game. Vegas and LA, these two teams, the Raiders and the Chargers, have played each other 4 times, obviously, over the last 2 seasons. And in those 4 games, they've beat their projected Vegas total each time. They average about 58 points total over those 4 games. So it's a high scoring game every single time. And now they got Devontae Adams, the Raiders did. So Gerald Everett is somebody I'm looking at as he's on a lot of waivers. There's no doubt about it. So he's somebody I'm looking at. If I got to plug somebody in, I'll plug him in.
And my guy
Austin
that
Hooper
I'm kind of
too.
looking at. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Austin Hooper, you know, with everything that's going on with the Titans receiving core, we're not sure what Treylon Burks, what we should expect from him, or even what Ryan Tannehill is going to look like. Austin Hooper's a guy I could feel like I could see catching 4 or 5 balls, maybe a touchdown. They get in the red zone. I like Austin Hooper if I have to pick somebody from this list. I might even say Austin Hooper I feel more safe about putting in as like a streamer than Irv Smith right now, just because, I think the situation's better. Irv Smith, like Austin Hooper isn't behind Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. And he doesn't have, he has Derrick Henry at running back, where the Vikings have Dalvin Cook. But Austin Hooper, I think, could have the target share that we're looking for, if at the very least, that's all that he gets.
Yeah, he could lead. I wouldn't be surprised if he leads his team in targets by the end of the year. That's in the realm of possibility.
That's a little bold, but okay. I
who do you think leads the team in targets? Robert Woods?
Treylon Burks.
Treylon Burks.
I think Treylon Burks, just because they drafted him, they want him to play. So
I could see it.
As long as he's healthy. As long as he's
just
healthy.
For the podcast listeners, I'll just go over this list real quick. At 11, we had Pat Frymuth, followed by David Njoku, followed by Albert O, Irv Smith, Tyler Higbee, Hunter Henry, Gerald Everett, Austin Hooper, Mike Gesicki, and then Evan Ingram. And by the way, the reason why we have Mike Gesicki too low, or I have him too low at 19, is because I don't really expect him to be that involved in the pass game. Apparently, he's going to be staying in to block a ton, and that might not be too conducive to fantasy points. And on top of that, you got Tyreek Hill now, and there's going to be a lot of targets split between him and Jalen Waddle. So Gesicki took a hit.
Yep.
All right. That'll do it for this episode. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy football on Sunday. By the way, I'll be going live starting at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time on Instagram. I'll be live for about 90 minutes with a bunch of different characters. All we're on Instagram. We'll be talking fantasy, answering fantasy questions, talking about start sits, all that. So make sure you tune in there. If you want the full set of rankings, including flex rankings, you can hit the Patreon. It's in the description of this video. And you get all the rankings and blurbs. The blurbs will be up later today. So I appreciate you guys. Zach, appreciate you, man. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys soon. Take it easy. Bye.